Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me as we talk about movies. Well, okay, I'm the one doing all the talking. You know what I mean. Be sure and comment down below and subscribe and ring that bell, and you'll be notified every time I have a new movie review upload. So, today, the movie I'm reviewing is called Greenland. This movie is released in the United States September 25th, 2020. The movie is rated PG-13. It's an hour and 59 minutes. And the movie review mom grade I'm giving it is a B+. I actually really like disaster movies. I know that probably sounds terrible, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me give you a quick overview. I'll point out some tips for parents, things I liked, things I didn't like, as well as some themes worth talking about if you watch this movie with your family and friends. So first of all, in a nutshell, one of the best things about this movie, I think, is that with the coronavirus raging throughout the world still, the movie is still pretty fun to watch and maybe puts our complaints about quarantining in perspective. I mean, come on, in this movie, the whole world is falling apart, literally being destroyed, and we just have to stay at home and can watch Netflix. So STX Films brings us this action thriller directed by Rick Roman Woe and starring Gerard Butler. So you know that there's going to be action because it's got Gerard Butler in it, right? So some quick tips for parents are that there is a high body count. I mean, people are dying everywhere. There are some very disturbing images of destruction that might frighten young children. And there is a little bit of profanity, but no F-bombs. So there's that. Now, some themes that I thought were really interesting are family, forgiveness, survival, of course, and that life is precious and to not take it for granted. So some things that I really liked about the movie are, first of all, some viewers are saying that this movie is more realistic than a lot of end of the world movies. And because of that, it's more frightening. It's scary because you think, well, this actually really could play out like this. And so with the world in 2020 being crazy, I think a lot of people will go, yeah, this is probably going to happen this year. There are a lot of unexpected turns and I guess you could sort of call them twists, but turn of events that keep things interesting where you're like, whoa, yeah, that could happen. Oh, wow, how would I be prepared for that? And I hope that that's what this movie does, is make you think, how prepared would I be for that scenario? Because 2020 has been so crazy and things are continuing to get crazier, I think it's a really good exercise to walk through your own personal preparedness. And I'm talking physical preparedness, emotional, spiritual, financial, social, all of that kind of stuff. Some of the CGI is actually really good. I think the comet fragments really look good. And then there are some moments in the sky where you see stuff happening and you're like, wow, it probably really would look like that. And so that's done really, really well. And assuming that they actually filmed part of the movie in Greenland, it was really beautiful to see that. I always love it when you get a bird's eye view of countries, the world, and you see recognizable cities just destroyed with recognizable landmarks, so you know what that city is, and you're just like, whoa. Some of the special effects, as I mentioned, are very, very good. And the human element, I think, of the movie is what takes it to another level. It's very, very powerful. There are some moments where your heart will just be ripped out, especially as a mother. You'll just be like, oh, what would I do? Anyway, I really liked that. Now, before I go into the things I didn't like, let me point out a few survival tips for you, because again, I'm hoping that you're going to be entertained, but that you take it a step further and really consider your preparedness. So tip number one, have a 72-hour kit ready to go in a backpack now. So I don't mean to say that a meteor is going to crash on the earth right now, although actually there was one recently that did fly by. I don't know if you caught that one or not, but there are plenty of other emergency scenarios where you could actually use an emergency kit, and I have. So when I say a 72-hour kit or a go bag or something like that, I have one in each of my vehicles because you never know where you're going to be if a disaster strikes or terrorism or roving bands of gangs and threatening people or whatever. And so I also have one for each person in my family hanging in my garage, so at a moment's notice, unlike the family in this movie where they're like we're trying to find their suitcases and trying to decide what clothes should I pack, like what, you have this bag, it's ready to go, it's in a backpack form rather than suitcases that you're going to have to drag around. So throw it over your back and off you go. Of course, if you have more time, you can add more things, put them in your car, depending on how you're being evacuated, that kind of stuff. But start thinking about that right now. And there are some very practical things you need to have. Obviously, water, food, a change of clothes, and then things that are particular to your family, like diapers or special medicine. And that's actually an issue in this movie where you're like, oh, I need to be prepared for that. And yes, you do. Anyway, I've got a whole list that I put together of things that are in my 72-hour backpack. And by the way, they really don't fit in one backpack. I have the big one that's got as much stuff as I can fit in that. And then I actually do have a dragging one, but it's, an easier drag rather than a big suitcase or something like that. Anyway, if you're interested in getting a copy of that 72-hour kit, just email me at trina@moviereviewmom.com. I rarely give out that email address, but I really want you to have the 72-hour kit because I think it's that important. Always, another tip is to always keep at least a quarter of a tank of gas in your car at all times. Never let it go under that. Never let it go on empty because again, you might be thinking, oh, I'll go to the gas station tomorrow. And then tomorrow doesn't come because you're evacuated in the evening and, the neighborhood's on fire or whatever, that kind of thing. Also, don't expect the government to save you. And that was an interesting element of this movie as well. Really be responsible for yourself. Get your preparedness supplies in order now. Have a plan. Another tip is always have a plan B if your plan A doesn't work. People are going to be panicked and they're going to be irrational. So you want to stay away from crowds and stores. And I really loved that element of the movie because you see some things that could happen if you're like, oh, but I just need this one medicine or this, I need to get some food. You don't want to be around a crazy public when everything is melting down and people are really frightened and just not thinking clearly. You really do need to have all of your supplies before an emergency hits. And hopefully the pandemic taught you a little bit about that as well. Of course, now we can order online, have food delivered, stores are opened. It's not as crazy as it was when the quarantine first hit. But we don't know when something else is going to hit. So, just get a few extra cans of food the next time you're shopping. And, little by little, you start building up your supplies. Also, keep an extra cell phone battery with you if possible. In these movies, they can't get their cell phone range. Of course, cell towers are falling down and being destroyed. That's a consideration too. But communication is always the first issue in an emergency because people want to know what happened or what is happening or how do I reach my loved one. So I actually have a ham radio technician's license. And so I have a ham radio, several GMRS radios, FRS radios, and all that techno geek talk. And so you might want to consider getting something like that as well. All right, enough of that. Some things that I didn't like about the movie. And first of all is a lot of the scenes take place at nighttime, which is going to make viewing the movie on small devices really difficult once it goes to streaming. So right now it's going straight to theaters, but again, stuff could happen and it could be, theaters could be shut down and then it'll go to streaming. So I'm just saying, I wish that movies weren't always so dark. There is some bad CGI at moments where it really does look totally fake. And that always kills it for me for a disaster movie because you want it to be believable, right? Most of the impressive action can be seen in the trailer, although again, there are some moments that are obviously not in the trailer that will make you go, whoa. So It's not a total spoiler of a trailer. I mean, you know it's going to be a disaster movie and stuff's going to get destroyed. So I thought the acting was actually pretty good. There were a few minor characters that I was like, that's a little overacting there. But, again, it's a disaster movie. And so everybody's on high alert and heightened emotions. Anyway, there are three movies that immediately came to my mind as I was watching this. The first one was 2012. That's such a fun movie. I've seen it several times. Well, fun in a disaster movie kind of way. But this movie kind of followed that formula. So a lot of people are saying, well, this movie is really cliche. It is. It's a disaster movie. It's got all of the tropes that you would expect. It's still fun though. Another one is Geostorm, starring Gerard Butler. He's getting good at these disaster movies. And then another one that I had seen on an airplane several years ago and then watched again at home with my husband was The Impossible. Such a really good movie and a true story, which makes it even more compelling, I think. All right, that's it for now. Until my next review, please be safe, healthy, get prepared, and be kind out there. Bye for now.